We left off talking about layer style and fonts. And, I briefly mentioned that, you should be thinking a little bit about your typography in the sense of, you want nice, clear placement. You don't want to jumble things up with too many words. You want your words to be your font to be a decent size so that they're readable. And when you choose your font, make sure it's appropriate for the style that you're going for, okay? Don't just pick any font. Um, there's enough there in Photoshop that you can probably find something that will suit you. And if you can't, um, downloading stuff off the internet is easy enough. Finding a free font site, just Google it, and it'll tell you how to download and install the font to your computer. Okay. So all we really have left to discuss, as far as this assignment goes, is to talk to you a little bit about filters, and maybe go through the process of how to place things on, like just to do like a side of your box. Okay. Now filters, right here under the filter menu, these are like special effects for your images. A lot of these you probably won't necessarily need for your, for your boxes, because a lot of these things are made to distort imagery, and distortion is not necessarily what you want. But there are a few nice ones that I want to point out. There's too many to cover each one individually. We would be here for the next 3 days. And when you click on the filter menu, you see this list here that goes through some of the basics. Like there's different types of blurs and distortion filters, stylize and sharpen. The one that I go to the most, though, is Filter Gallery. And we actually used this back when we did the stippling project, if you remember, when I had you guys use the stamp filter to do your portraits. Okay, so first thing I want to do is select. I'm going to go ahead and select the layer that has my gradient fills on it. From yesterday. I'm going to go to Filter, Filter Gallery. And as you can see, I've got lots of different choices here. I've got artistic, and under those there's cutout, dry brush. There's all kinds of different effects that you can do, and if you click on them, it'll give your images a certain effect. Colored pencil, paint dabs, okay? Now on the particular layer I have selected, a lot of those aren't going to show up. A lot of these would work better on a photograph. But I'm going to do something under Sketch called halftone pattern. Okay. Because again, on my box, I'm doing lots of comic-based imagery. And if you've seen like pop art especially, halftone patterns are a method that a lot of older comics used when they were being colored on like old newsprint, which was really like a cheap, kind of bad way, honestly, of reproducing art, like the cheapest way you can do it. But if you would zoom in closely on old comic strips and newspaper comics, you would see that all the colors were done with these little dots, these little colored dots. And so pop artists in the 60s used some of these kind of almost accidental techniques to create cool pattern and stuff, like halftone patterns. And sometimes, like when the comics would be colored, they would be off register, meaning like the color fills would be just a little off from the outline, so they would slightly be uneven. Well, a lot of pop artists like Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol and a lot of other guys took some of those accidental kinds of effects and used them in their own screen printing. Like they would intentionally make things off center and use halftone dots because they would kind of create these cool textures when they were blown up really big. Um, and because this particular box is kind of using that style of art, you can do something like a filter like halftone pattern works really well to create some texture. Okay. There's nothing wrong with like just flat color or just gradients, but I find sometimes adding a little bit of pop like this makes things more interesting. So you just click on whichever filter you want to use. In this case, it's halftone pattern. You click on that, and over here on the right, you will see parameters. So I can change the size of the dots if I want to go smaller with them or keep them larger, strengthen or lessen the contrast. You can also change from dots to doing more of like a circle. It's more like a hypno wheel kind of effect, or doing lines. Okay. Once you have chosen what you want, I'm going to go back to dots. Hit OK. And because I used a gradient, it goes from like, dark to light in terms of the value. Okay. Now, if I decide that, oh, that looks too busy, I can always go back with my opacity and push the layer back a little bit so it doesn't compete. But I kind of like that the way it is. So, but you see now, I've got some nice texture going on my box. And you don't have to do the entire thing. I will create a new layer and I'll just show you another way. I'm going to turn this layer off. On my background copy, I'm going to get the magic wand, and again, I'm just going to select one side of the box just to show you. I'm going to get my gradient tool, and this time I'm just going to do the corners. I'm not going to do the entire thing. And I'm going to switch this actually to foreground color to transparent, so that I'm just going to do that. Now I'm going to go back and apply. When you go to filter, if you just do Control F, or this first one here, it will just automatically apply the last filter you did. So you can just do that, right? And it'll do the last thing you did. Now that's not exactly the effect I wanted, so I'm going to go back and keep messing with it. But basically, you don't, when you do a pattern or a filter, you can just do it in sections. You don't have to do the entire face. and sometimes you get better effects that way. Okay. And again, there's other examples. Let me see if I can find a good, yes. Okay, to get the halftone pattern, I went to filter gallery, click on that, and then it gives you all these options. Well, unless you make the selection, right? Right. If you want the whole box, then you select the whole box. But like in my case, I think what I needed to do was just select part of it. Hold down Shift and get the magic wand and click on all four sides. All right, let's try this again. Okay, there we go. That's more what I was looking for. So now I've only got, I mean, I don't really like what's going on up top. I'll fix that, but see, now I've only got it on half the box, and if I fade it with the opacity, now I've got something going on in the background. All right, like just as I mentioned that usually the more successful paintings you see are ones that have several layers built up. I think that in a project like this, layering can be your friend. You definitely don't want to have something that's cluttered, but if you have some subtle things going on in the background being built up and you're not just doing like one flat color, I think it's just going to really depend on the box and what you're doing. Sometimes flat color works really well. Sometimes you want a little something something back there. Okay, so filters are your friend for that. But again, it takes some experimentation and some trial and error. Because each box is different, I can't say categorically that, oh, this filter will always work for you in every case, because each case is different. So my recommendation is that you just play with filters and come up, you might find something that you like, but you'll just have to play with it. You have to just give yourself the time, invest a little time to experiment. Okay, so other filters that might come in handy, like doing certain types of blurs. Like I'll do a few quick ones for you. Let's go to layer 8, where Red Tornado is. So blur, regular blur just makes something blurry. You could use the blur tool for that. But some of these other ones, like motion blur, this one's kind of cool. How it basically just, so if I was doing like, the Flash, and I had an image of the Flash running, I might actually duplicate the layer and have some after images of him running behind and then blur them out like this using motion blur. And you could change the direction of the blur. So you can go diagonal or horizontal or vertical. So, that's motion blur. Gaussian blur is more of a, an all over kind of a thing. And you have these sliders that can intensify the effect. You might be able to create some cool effects with that. But again, it's a slippery slope. It's very easy to overdo a layer and get carried away with it. You can do stuff like there's some cool ones in brush strokes where you can make something look. There we go. Like it's spattered paint. And again, you can slide your sliders and play with the effects. So again, you just have to play around with it. Okay. Now a few other pieces of advice. As I mentioned, I want all four sides of the box to be full of content. All right. If you are simply doing this, right? I just did that to show you how paste into works. But I've had students in the past that will literally just stick an image on the side of a box and then be done with it. All right. This does not involve any design at all on your part. Simply taking an image that someone else has designed and slapping it on your box is not design. It's laziness. Okay. So if you're going to use images like this, you need to make sure you're putting other stuff on top of it and show me that you are actually thinking through the placement of objects. You're actually planning a composition. You've actually, it's design as a verb instead of design as a noun, right? You can have a design and it's a noun, but I'm talking about the act of designing as a verb, okay? So you need to show me in this assignment that you are designing, you're planning, you're arranging things in a way that, you're making decisions and you're not just taking what someone else did and sticking it on the side of a box. Does that make sense? So I want you to be careful. Images like this, I mean, it's really easy to take other people's stuff and stick it on there and have it look really good. And you've kind of tricked yourself into thinking that you did this great box, and really it's just because you had really good photo reference, okay? But it's still very possible to take separate images and arrange them in a new way and create a new design out of them. All right, so logos, all that stuff should play a part. So your design process should include activities, creative activities that actually make sense with your theme. It should include information about your theme and your characters so that you're communicating. Remember, design's about communication. You're communicating what your theme is about. You're kind of telling the story a little bit through your box of whatever it is you're doing. And it should include, try to think outside the box a little bit, no pun intended, okay? Remember I showed you those examples the other day. A box doesn't have to just be a box. You can have your box be other things. Like, you can punch out parts of it and it could be a container for something else. Maybe one side of your box you can cut out and you could assemble a little paper person out of it. I don't know. But just be creative. Think outside the normal parameters, right? If you just design a box that just has mazes and stuff on it, That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But I also want to encourage you to be really creative and do more if you can. Okay. Um, and again, what I would do is I would start with the backgrounds and get all of your color fills and filters and stuff on the background first, and then start layering images and text on top of it. You definitely need to have the restaurant logo on there. So Google logos for, McDonald's or Wendy's, or, pick a restaurant, even if it's a restaurant that doesn't necessarily have kids meals, like if you wanted to do a box for Chipotle or something, I don't care, that's fine. Just get the logo, get a nice high res logo, and put it on the box somewhere in Photoshop. If you're doing McDonald's, McDonald's actually has a Happy Meal logo. Let's see if I can find it. All right, there it is right there. So you could just download that, select the white space on the outside of the circle, copy, paste, and you've got like a nice official looking Happy Meal logo right there. But you go on Google and you can find any company logo you want. Thought I had another one up with more logos, but I guess not. All right, so like just do fast food logos, and bam, look at that. So then you find one that's a decent size. It'll tell you the dimensions when you go there, but click on view image and right click and, save image as. And what you should be doing is compiling a folder with all of your images in it. All right. All of your assets that you need for your box. So logos, character images, character logos. Like if your TV show or movie has a logo, an official logo, find it and use it. Okay. Again, this is perfect because all this logo is behind a flat white background. So this would be really easy to cut out and paste on a box. Okay. So even though you guys didn't design this logo, you can still make decisions about where it's placed on the box, the size of it. Maybe you could incorporate it into other things. Okay, there's still ways you can make design decisions and design, as a verb, without, even though you're taking pieces of other stuff. Now the other option is, of course, you can make up your own property for this. You can come up with your own characters. I've had lots of students do it, and they've had great success with it. All right. Then you just take your drawings. You'd want to probably, sketch them out in pencil, then trace over them with like a pen, like one of your micron pens, if you still have any of your microns left over from the stippling. Then we have scanners here. You can scan it in here or at home. Then cut it out and put it on your box. There are also websites that will generate things like mazes and word finds for you. Okay, so for example, I have this word search website, Teacher's Corner. All you have to do is type in a list of words type in how many rows and columns you want your word find to be. Do you want it to be square, or it could be in the shape of a car, a diamond? You have all these options here. The free version doesn't give you different font choices, but I think there's a way if you do a paid version where you get like more choices of font. But I don't know how necessary that really is. All right, but the reason why this particular one is good is because when you generate the word find like this, it allows you to save it as a PDF, an image file. A lot of them don't do that. So see now, if I hit save as PDF, I can either create image like this, and it creates its own little PNG file, which I don't know if it opened in another, nope, there it is. Wait a minute. Hello. Okay. Now I can actually copy this, I think, unless it's going to mess up on me. I just copied it. Now I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm going to right click. Is that not going to do it? Nope, that's not going to work. All right, that's okay. So I can save this now. Saves it as Word Scramble PNG. I'll just save it to my desktop. Now I can open, go to my desktop. Go to Word Scramble, hit open. There it is. Now I can simply take this, drag it onto my box. I probably want to use less letters because that's kind of a lot, but it's, Now what I can do is set, remember we talked about the blending options here on layers? On that layer, I can set it to multiply, and watch what happens. It takes away all the white without me having to delete it. Now I can edit, transform, scale, make it bigger, apply it. I'm going to take it over here. Now what I will want to do is either change out my background image or push this back so much that, so you can still make out Batman and stuff back there, but okay. And, I can do other things like I don't need to have name up here. I can delete this. And just, you could write some instructions on the top, maybe have red tornado up here. I can use this over here. And maybe it's a puzzle all about red tornado, or maybe it's, image adjustments. Nope. Oh, wow, that's really big. Okay. Don't know why there's so much extra space around that. So I can scale down my little headshot here. That's a good size. Hit enter. Scooch this up. Scooch this down. And I can have little instructions like help Red Tornado find the hidden words, or whatever. Again, I would want probably to use less rows, but you get the idea. Okay, and you can find mazes and stuff. All right, just do a Google search for maze. And there are websites that would generate your own, or just grab one of these, and view image, right click. You could even just copy it. You don't even necessarily need to save it. Go back to Photoshop, right click. No, it still didn't work. I guess I do have to save it. All right, paste it on there. Then, so you can figure out whatever activities you want to have. Again, you could do a spot the difference kind of activity and use that clone stamp tool that I showed you a couple days ago and say spot 5 differences between these 2 pictures, and you can go in and subtly change little things, with the clone stamp, like take away somebody's finger, or take away a button on their shirt or something, or give them an extra shoelace or something, and just do things with that. All right, so there's a lot of different options. Is this making sense? Okay. Now, we have about 10 minutes left, a little over 10 minutes left before the bell. So if you have questions, I can answer those. Or if you want me to go back and show you something again that you forgot, I can do that. But that's more or less all I've got for this stuff. So I'll go ahead and stop this. And yes. Fine. Sometimes your layer, you might accidentally hit this little padlock button, and it will lock the layer you have selected. Locked means that you can't change the layer, you can't do anything with it. It's like Photoshop protecting you and saying, no, don't mess with this layer. Sometimes that happens accidentally. See that little padlock right there? If you want to get rid of it, simply click on the lock and it goes away. If you want to lock a layer for some reason, you can use that. And there it goes, it relocks itself. You can also do things like lock the position of your layer so it won't get moved accidentally. And you can lock the pixels so that, so there are these individual parameters, but if you just click this padlock, it locks everything so that you can't move it, you can't paint on it, you can't do anything to the layer. So that's all that means. And all of these things up here, like filter for adjustment layers, filter for pixel layers, I wouldn't worry about those. Filter for pixel layers, that's probably what we're going to use the most. We're not really going to do adjustment layers or smart objects or anything. Okay. So then there might be little things like that that I forgot to cover that'll pop up, and I'll just deal with them as they happen. Yes. Oh, well, it's just in the filter gallery. You go filter, filter gallery, and it was probably under either artistic or brush strokes. I don't remember which one you're talking about specifically, but that's where most of those artsy fartsy filters are. Okay. All right. So at this point, it's all academic, but now you guys need to take the next step and start actually planning out what you're doing, make decisions about what your theme is. All right. Hopefully, you've been thinking about this over the past few days, but now is the time when, you know, it's up to you now to start making this happen. So over the weekend, what you should be doing is on paper in your sketchbooks, start brainstorming ideas. Remember when I talked to you guys the other day about doing thumbnail sketches and using grids to help you, and using, like, the rule of thirds, and the golden meat, the golden rule and all that stuff to plan out your layouts. Okay. And look at real world boxes, Google Happy Meal boxes and see what other people have done, to get some inspiration. I have some real boxes here that I will bring, that I'll show you guys next week. But, I want you guys to kind of sort of know what you're doing when you come in on Monday. All right. Don't come in Monday without having thought about this once, and you're just trying to figure out ideas. All right. I mean, if anything, I want you to have too many ideas. I want you to come in with tons of ideas, and then we can kind of whittle it down. All right. So choose your theme. Make sure it's something that you want to do, that's fun for you. Make sure that you can find enough good reference for it. Remember, you want to be able to find, if you Google something, like, let's say you're going to do a Happy Meal box about, Beethoven. I don't know. You like classical music, and you Google and you can't find a lot of images, then maybe you should pick something else, right? Unless you're going to hand draw stuff. But again, your box can be about anything. Pick something you're passionate about. It can be about the environment, or history, or human rights, or it could be about something great, or it could be about, SpongeBob, whatever. You guys can kind of make this whatever you want, or you can use an established character and have them talking about something that means something to you. Like, you could have um, Mickey Mouse talking about recycling, or you know what I mean? Like, you could do whatever you want, literally. Okay? So the possibilities are endless. I just want you guys hopefully to be excited about this, because I really do think this is a fun project. Um, so for the weekend, your homework is to just have ideas compiled, and don't just be thinking about it. Write it down. Get your sketchbook, get some paper, write down all of your ideas. Start Googling images and saving them to a folder on your computer, so they're all in one place and they're easy to get to. Um, Look for fonts. Go back and rewatch some of these videos that I've been making if you need a refresher. Because you're basically going to have next week, as far as class time goes, to do these, and then we got to move on to the final project, which is doing the toy that goes along with this box. All right, so I need to leave some time for that. So this weekend, just spend a little time researching, brainstorming, doing some thumbnail sketches, and being creative. All right, you guys are finally kind of getting the chance to do your own thing here, so take advantage of it. All right, last thing before the